Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am going to share with you guys today what we do for our homeschool. So I'm going to preface this by saying two really important things. First, we are homeschoolers, not school at homers. So we don't have like a set wake up at 8:30, have breakfast, get dressed, and then we do math from 10 to 11 and language arts from 11 to 12. We don't do that. We really fit our homeschool into our home. So it is just something that we just do throughout the day. And we do have kind of a schedule, but it's kind of something that has just fallen into that schedule. It's not something that I set out to do, no matter how hard I try. I am a planner. I am a very type A personality, and that just hasn't worked for our family. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that this is what has worked for our family. So this may work for you guys. I hope that this gives you guys some fun ideas of things to do. But if you disagree with what we do, that's okay. You don't have to agree with it. This is just what I have found has worked for our family over the last decade plus of homeschooling. So we have homeschooled since the very beginning. We knew we were going to when my oldest was just a tiny little baby. This is something I've had lots of time to really think through and work on for a long time. So we started homeschooling 11 years ago when my son was just 4 years old. And throughout that last 11 years, we have changed a lot. I started with buying a full curriculum, just specifically for my 4-year-old, and it was really great for what it was. And then we realized pretty quickly after that that it was just not working for multiple children. So we moved to kind of setting our own curriculum up, and that is where I still stay today. So we kind of work through our own ideas of what we want to do, and I am a big fan of that. So you won't see like this is what the Abeka or My Father's World curriculum actually is in our house, because that's just not what we do. So that being said, the first thing that I will say that is absolutely mandatory for me, and I would assume for most homeschool families, is a really good planner. So I use the undated, a simple plan planner. I use the undated because I always start it at a different time than what the actual dates are, and I like that I can kind of go through and write everything on my own. I love this planner. I love how it is set up. I think it is so beautiful. And even now, having 4 kids that I am scheduling for, I have found that I have plenty of space in this planner for that, which not all planners have. I also use this for my meal planner, my budget planner. I use it constantly. This thing has my entire life in it right now. So I am a huge fan. You can get this on Amazon. I pick mine up at Mardell's usually because I just like to go in and actually get it. But the planner is necessary for our homeschool to be successful. The second thing is that I will say I do not do testing on my kids like at all. We are in Oklahoma, and I would strongly suggest if you are planning on homeschooling, the first thing that you need to do is look at the laws in your state, because they vary in every state. In Oklahoma, the right to homeschool is built into our Oklahoma Constitution. So we have very little oversight on that, which I am a big fan of, because it means I can kind of work through what is actually best for my children and not what somebody else is telling me that we have to work through. So because of that, we don't have to do any kind of testing, and I get to just really focus on what each one of my children needs and is struggling with and really enjoys. So instead of doing testing, I really like to have different ways to make sure that my kids are learning what they need to be learning. I stay on top of grading their actual work, but then I like to have other ways that we are kind of practicing things that doesn't even really feel like we're practicing actual concepts that they need to learn. So one thing that I do is my kids have a word search book, and they do a word search every day. And I love this because they are seeing words written down that they might not see written down in a book that they're reading. So they're practicing spelling without even realizing it. When we come across a word that they don't know, we will look that word up and we'll talk about it. And so we're practicing vocabulary. There have been a few words that we've added to our vocabulary because they have seen them in their word search books. So this is a really fun way for me to kind of gauge where they're at and kind of introduce some new things to them outside of any other curriculum that we're doing. And my kids just really enjoy doing word searches. They like doing the same word search at the same time and kind of racing. I'm a big fan of that too. I also think that that's really fun. And so word searches are one thing that we have added to our daily curriculum that has been really helpful. Another one that I really, really love, and this has been helpful for me to kind of see where my kids are at with spelling, with grammar, with sentence structure, that sort of thing. And that is doing a family journal. So each of my kids will have a notebook, and every day we will write notes back and forth just between my husband and I and that specific child. So sometimes my husband will write notes, sometimes I will write notes, and then that kid will write back to us. And we just keep that conversation going. It's really fun. It's a fun little secret thing just between them and us. Their journals are hands off for anyone else, so it doesn't get read by the other siblings. It doesn't get read by anybody outside of just that kid and their parents. So it's a really fun kind of secret way for us to communicate, but then it's also a really good way for me to gauge where they're at as far as their grammar and sentence structure and spelling and that sort of thing goes. So if I'm seeing like a word that they are continually misspelling, then we'll talk about that and I will show them how to spell it, and they will practice incorporating that word in their next journal entry, that sort of thing. So I don't feel like I necessarily need to test them in the same way that kids are tested in a school setting, because we have ways to kind of gauge where they're at otherwise. So I really am a big fan of family journaling. I think that it's just a fun thing to add, even if you don't need to gauge that anymore. It's just a fun thing to have like that mode of communication between just that kid and you. So it's been fun. We've told secrets, we've told jokes, little stories, that sort of thing, memories I have of them as kids, that sort of thing. And the kids always enjoy that. So the next thing is how we kind of set up our school is I have 3 kids that are older, and then I have a toddler. So my toddler has a book all her own. This is a completely separate from anything anybody else does. We just have like every day we go through what the day of the week is, what the weather is like. We'll talk about how she's feeling that day, that sort of thing. Very toddler appropriate stuff. And then we have, every week we go through a letter. I'm just kind of introducing these letters. I don't expect her to really remember them. I don't expect her to, at the end of this school year, know what all of these letters are, the sounds that they make. It's just understanding that letters exist at this point. So I printed these off. I ordered them from Etsy. It's a fun, like, letters in a farm setting. So that's kind of what we're going for with her right now. And every week we just talk about a letter. We talk about things that start with that letter, that sort of thing. And then we just practice what that letter looks like and finding it. I put these in page protectors, and she has dry erase markers. So I haven't erased these yet, but you can very easily just with a napkin, just erase and rewrite, erase and rewrite. So it's a really cost-effective way to do an entire book for a toddler, because I have found that she really enjoys being included in school time, but she's not quite old enough to actually have a curriculum of her own. So that's what we've done for her, and it has worked out really well. She has learned a few of the letters. She knows how to spell her own name, that sort of thing now. Each of my other kids have a notebook as well, and theirs is obviously a little bit more set up in a different way, but they also always have like their pens and pencils and that sort of thing. And then they have theirs set up: language arts, math, science, history, and Bible. So we do science, history, and Bible together as a family, and I'll talk about how I kind of handle that with different grade levels in a second. And then they do language arts and math individually. So language arts and math are the only thing that each individual child has their own curriculum for. And then they all have like hardback books and that sort of thing that they are just going through and writing their own answers in. So that's what they have their whole school basically set up in this one book. So each kid has one of those. And then each kid, they do their own language arts and their own math. So for language arts, I am a big fan of these Progeny Press books. So we start them in second grade. Kindergarten and first grade, we do a lot of just learning to read. And then once they learn to read, then we can start focusing on actual books. So in second grade, sometimes third, kind of depends where we're at with that individual kid. We start with the Progeny Press books. So the way these work is it is a study guide companion with an actual like classic literature book. So right now my 12-year-old is reading Bridge to Terabithia, and she has the Progeny Press book to go along with that. So every day she has something different to do with that book. So she might read chapters 3 and 4 one day, and then the next day she'll work on vocabulary from that book, and then the next day she'll work on similes that she saw in chapters 3 and 4. And this has been a really, really great way to introduce all of those language arts concepts, in addition to some history concepts, some math concepts, some scripture. All of that is encompassed in these Progeny Press books, and I have been so impressed. So there is a wide variety of different kinds of books, different genres of stories that we have gone through. So we have done, my son did a whole Lord of the Rings year. We have done, so many. Frog and Toad Are Friends. We have done A Cricket in Times Square, Red Badge of Courage, Where the Red Fern Grows, all of the Little House on the Prairie books, all the way up to things like Little Women and Jane Eyre and Pride and Prejudice for high school. So we have a wide variety of different books. So we have introduced a lot of different literature to our kids in this way, and it is written on those specific grade levels. So I don't have to like separate what each individual grade level does. So this one, Bridge to Terabithia, is for grades 6 through 8. So anytime between grades 6 through 8, when I feel like that my kid is ready for that specific book, we'll jump into that one. Again, they have all different age groups, all the way from second grade through high school. So big fan of the Progeny Press books. That is how we will continue to do language arts. Math is probably the one subject that most people are concerned about when they start homeschooling, and I was definitely no exception to that. I am not a huge math fan. I have never loved it an immense amount, but it is something that is obviously necessary. So the one that we ended up landing on, that after we tried a few different kinds, a few different curriculums, the one that we really landed on and loved is the Rod and Staff. So I like this for a lot of different reasons. It's pretty cost effective, which I was surprised by for hardback books. But they are the Amish books, so there are some Christian concepts in there as well, which I'm a fan of, but they only go to school through 8th grade. If you know anything about Amish people, they only go to school through 8th grade. So the math curriculum only goes up to 8th grade, but because they only go to school through 8th grade, they're introducing things like algebra and geometry concepts a lot earlier, because they don't do that in high school. So by the time my son was finished with his 8th grade book, he already understood a lot of the concepts that he's now learning in high school math classes, which has been so beneficial, immensely beneficial for him. It really set him up for success for like later math classes. The only thing that I didn't like about it is that there are a few concepts that I felt like we didn't have enough time to really work through. So there have been a couple of things that when I realized, so every day after my kids do their math, I go through and I will like grade their stuff. And if they have gotten a sufficient amount of them correct, I see that they understand the concept, we move on to the next lesson. And if I can see that there are some concepts that they just are not getting, we will pause our math book and just work on those concepts until I can see that light bulb moment and see that they did understand it. So there have been a couple of times, things like multiplication facts, just working through those and memorizing those, that I didn't feel like this book sufficiently went over. So we kind of had to take some time off and do that, but that's okay. It has been different for every kid, which is really interesting to see. And I really love that I can be like really close to that curriculum and see what they're doing every single day, because I don't have to test them. I can see what concepts they're actually understanding and which ones they aren't. So other than that, I have been a huge fan of the Rod and Staff books. On top of that, they are a hardback book, so it is something that is sustainable for our family. I have been able to just pass down the books throughout the years. So I won't have to buy any more math books outside of my oldest, because I already have them and I can pass them down to my younger kids. So that's been really helpful. I have been a big fan of the Rod and Staff. For my oldest, who is in high school now, like I said, he's already understanding a lot of the math concepts that he learned in the Rod and Staff books. As he's going through his high school algebra, we went with Saxon for that, because I'm a big fan of how like they go back and will talk about concepts that they've already learned and build on that in this book. So that's what we went with for him. He is just brilliant, so he's already kind of understanding a lot of the stuff that I struggled with, which is amazing. And so that's what we went with math, Rod and Staff, and then once they hit high school, we are going with Saxon, because I just like how it is set up. All of that being said, there are things outside of math and language arts that we do together. So the first one that we do is Bible. Now I picked up on Etsy, I picked up these Bible printables, and I just printed them out and put them in my kids' individual books. So we are going through the different books of the Bible, and in each book, as we read it aloud as a family, they are responsible for filling this out. So it has different sections to fill out: who wrote the book, historical context, attributes of God's scene, significant people, and then notes, and then there's another page that has like a timeline and stuff. It has been really beneficial for us to break down the books of the Bible together as a family. There are things that one kid will catch that another kid won't, and so as we discuss what we've read after that, then they'll go through and write down, oh, I want to write down that note, I thought that was really interesting, that sort of thing. So that's what we do together on Bible. I am not a big stickler for them like writing long essays or anything over scripture. I really just want to focus on the actual scripture with them and talk about what we're learning. So that is what we do for Bible. For history, we are reading through the story of the world. We're actually not on this book. I think we're on volume 3 right now. I'm a big fan of story of the world. So the way that this works is every week, maybe 2, 3, 4 nights, kind of depending upon what we have going on in our lives at that time, we will sit down and read a chapter of our history book. So as we go through it, we aren't really writing anything with history necessarily. I really just want to focus on like the concepts and things that have happened in the historical past that are impacting us today, and what we can learn from history in those things. So that's kind of what we're doing with history right now. The other thing that I have found that has been highly beneficial for us, and I know that this won't be possible for everybody, but for us, is traveling. So we went to Paris and Italy. We've gone to Guatemala. We also do this anytime that we're traveling in the country. It's not just international travel. You can do this in your own city. But learning about the history of that place, the people that are significant from there, that sort of thing, and then actually going and experiencing it is connecting dots for my kids in ways that just reading about it in a book never did for me. So we went to France, we went to Paris, and we learned all about the history of the monarch there and all of those things. And then once we were there, we went to the Palace of Versailles, and it was so fun to watch my kids walk around and be like, oh, I know all about the king that lived in this castle, and this is the bedroom that he slept in. And I learned all about his daily routine and how that was important to them at that time. And all of those things, they could really see that history kind of come to life. And so right now, as we are planning our next trip to Greece, we are learning all about Greek history and how it is the birthplace of democracy and what that has impacted in America for us today, and seeing the differences in how democracy was created versus how we do it now. It's so interesting, and it is definitely the best educator that I can remember, that I can think of. So we are big fans of just reading and discussing history, and then actually trying to live it out anytime that we can. The last subject that we focus on is science. So right now we are working on biology. I like to split our science up into different sections. So zoology, biology, botany, those sorts of things. Right now we're working on biology, and we're working on the different systems inside the body. So we are talking about, every week we go through a different system in the body, and we talk about what that system does for us and what it requires. So as we do things like make dinner, we might show, hey, we are eating this specific thing, and we learned that this specific thing has this vitamin, and this vitamin is necessary for this system in our body to work. So it's really connecting actual things from a book to life lessons, and it has been really helpful for us. So we will go through, in the summertime, we will do botany when we are working on our garden, and we'll talk about things that different plants need and that sort of thing. So connecting science to real life, I have found, has been the best way for us to study that. And in the course of that, they're learning tons and tons and tons of really great scientific concepts as well. The way I set this one up, because we do have different grade levels, is each grade level is kind of expected to do something different. So my 10-year-old, when we talk about science and we talk about the different systems, she might like make points, bullet points, or write a sentence about what each system does and a specific thing that each system needs, that sort of thing. My 12-year-old will take that one step further, and she'll write like a paragraph about each one, and then my high schooler might write an entire essay about each system and what each system requires, and what would happen if we didn't get those things, that sort of thing. So it is on grade level, but because we are sitting down and all doing it together, it's still something that they can discuss amongst each other and we can talk about as a family. So that's kind of how we set up our homeschool. It just flows through our home. It is something that I love, that we can kind of pick up different things from different places. It's not a set curriculum, and it has been really beneficial to us. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys, encouraging a little bit. I am happy to answer any questions that you guys have about any of the specific things that we do in our curriculum, or how our day is run, or anything like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching.